From the outside, it looked like just another heated exchange, but anyone watching closely could feel something shift. The energy wasn't playful, and it wasn't just shade for entertainment. It felt uncomfortable, like a truth slipping out before anyone could stop it. People weren't laughing because the comments hit too close to home, pointing straight at problems that had clearly been simmering for a long time. The conversation didn't feel like gossip anymore. It felt like an open secret finally being spoken out loud. The words about hotel rooms, other women, and public embarrassment weren't new rumors. They were reminders. And what made it worse was that none of it sounded surprising. Viewers immediately noticed that this wasn't about one argument or one accusation. This was the moment where years of side eyes, excuses, and forced smiles started crashing together. The internet didn't need proof in that moment because the reaction alone told a story. And once people realized this wasn't an isolated incident, they started looking back at everything differently. From the very beginning, there was always confusion surrounding what this relationship actually was. Together, not together, married, not married, it seemed to change depending on who was speaking and when. Over time, that lack of clarity stopped feeling accidental and started feeling strategic. Whenever questions came up, the answers were vague enough to protect appearances, but loose enough to allow flexibility behind the scenes. Fans noticed that while one person spoke in terms of loyalty and family, the other spoke in terms of privacy and nobody else's business. That disconnect raised eyebrows long before blogs ever touched the story. The relationship appeared solid on camera, but off camera there were gaps that never quite lined up. Those gaps created space for speculation, and eventually space for behavior that didn't match the public image. What stood out most was how often the responsibility of defending the relationship fell on one person alone. And once people started recognizing that pattern, they began asking whether the rules were ever the same for both sides. Long before comment sections lit up, the whispers were already moving quietly through clubs, events, and industry circles. Stories about late nights, unfamiliar faces, and work trips with extra company weren't being shared online yet. They were being passed around in private conversations. People claimed they saw things that didn't match the devoted image being presented on TV. And the strange part wasn't that rumors existed, it was how consistent they were. Different people, different places, same kind of stories. Over time, it became harder to dismiss everything as jealousy or clout chasing. When those whispers finally made their way to social media, they didn't feel like breaking news, they felt overdue. Viewers began connecting dots they hadn't paid attention to before, realizing that what was happening publicly was just the polished version of something much messier. And once the internet caught up to what the streets had been saying, there was no way to put the story back in the bottle. When Erica's name came back into the conversation, it immediately reopened wounds that never really healed. People remembered the tension, the arguments, and how defensive things got the last time accusations surfaced. Back then, the narrative was simple. Someone was trying to interfere, and the relationship needed to be protected at all costs. But this time, the reaction felt different. The same claims about club behavior and questionable boundaries resurfaced, yet the denial didn't land the same way. Instead of shutting the rumors down, the pushback seemed to amplify them. Fans started asking why anger was directed at the messenger instead of the behavior being questioned. The timing made things even worse, because once those accusations went public again, more stories started following. It became clear that this wasn't about one person stirring drama, it was about a pattern that kept repeating, no matter how hard it was covered up. As more details came out, the story expanded beyond clubs and rumors into something harder to ignore. People started talking about messages, online interactions, and a pattern of attention being given to women far outside the relationship. Screenshots were mentioned, timelines were compared, and suddenly the situation felt less like speculation and more like accumulation. What really stood out was how casually the relationship status was reportedly described to others. Complicated, undefined, and not something that required accountability. That language alone raised red flags for viewers who had watched years of public loyalty being displayed. The contrast was jarring. On one side, there was the image of commitment and family. On the other, a lifestyle that suggested freedom without consequence. And the more these stories stacked up, the harder it became for fans to believe that everything happening was a surprise to the person holding the relationship together publicly. As more details came out, the story expanded beyond clubs and rumors into something harder to ignore. People started talking about messages, online interactions, and a pattern of attention being given to women far outside the relationship. Screenshots were mentioned, timelines were compared, and suddenly the situation felt less like speculation and more like accumulation. What really stood out was how casually the relationship status was reportedly described to others. Complicated, undefined, and not something that required accountability. That language alone raised red flags for viewers who had watched years of public loyalty being displayed. The contrast was jarring. On one side, there was the image of commitment and family. On the other, a lifestyle that suggested freedom without consequence. And the more these stories stacked up, the harder it became for fans to believe that everything happening was a surprise to the person holding the relationship together publicly. Just when people thought the story couldn't get more complicated, a major twist changed the entire conversation. Instead of denying awareness, Yandy openly admitted that she had been messaging women herself, waiting to see who would respond. The way she said it, calm, direct, and almost rehearsed, stopped people in their tracks. It didn't sound reactive, it sounded prepared. That admission shifted the narrative from suspicion to confirmation that something had been wrong for a long time. Viewers started wondering how long she'd been operating in defense mode, quietly checking, testing, and bracing for impact. The revelation raised uncomfortable questions about trust and survival within the relationship. Was this about control, reassurance, or simply trying to stay ahead of embarrassment? Either way, it became clear that this wasn't a sudden breakdown. It was the result of years spent anticipating disappointment.
Then came the moment that flipped the entire storyline on its head. During a podcast appearance, Mendeecees addressed the rumors head-on, but instead of clearing things up, he complicated them even more. He claimed that the relationship wasn't what people thought, that they weren't together in the way the public assumed, and that they had never even been officially married. That statement landed hard. Suddenly, every defense, every argument, and every tear took on a different meaning. If what he said was true, then the public loyalty looked one-sided. And if it wasn't true, then the damage was even worse. Either way, the internet was left questioning what had been real and what had been performance. The silence that followed from Yandy only made things louder as people debated whether this was confirmation of private arrangements or a public distancing strategy gone wrong. By the time everything settled, the tone online had shifted completely. Where there was once sympathy, there was now exhaustion. Fans began saying that this wasn't something that happened to her, it was something she stayed in. Many pointed out how often blame had been redirected toward other women instead of the source of the problem. The idea that this relationship had been unequal from the start gained traction, especially with conversations about the ceremony that never became official. To some viewers, it felt like proof that the commitment was symbolic, not real. At that point, the question wasn't whether cheating rumors existed, it was whether faithfulness had ever been expected. And as people reflected on the entire timeline, one thought kept coming up again and again. Maybe this wasn't about betrayal anymore. Maybe it was about choosing to protect an image, even when the reality had already fallen apart.